Thank you, Alex. So we hear the story this morning of Philip and Philip's responsiveness to God, his willingness to follow where God leads, his willingness, if you will, to dance with God and to let God decide on the tempo and the steps that they will dance together. And so once more we hear of a follower of Christ stepping outside his comfort zone, because you got to admit, going and talking to a stranger can be hard. And yet that's what God calls so many of his disciples to do, to talk, to share with strangers what they know. I saw Katie and Shannon here this morning, and I want to say hello to them, particularly Shannon, who was waving at us, and I am delighted. And this is part of our call to mentor our children and to mentor our adults, those who are young in the faith. And so we hear in Philip a model for who we should be, somebody who is listening and paying attention and saying, what is it that I need to say here? It might be that you hear somebody complaining and hurting and really struggling, and what you might be called to say is, can we say a prayer together? Now, I know that the first step of that is, I'll pray for you, which gives us nice distance and keeps people from feeling emotion and et cetera and so forth. But perhaps the challenge there is to say, instead of I will pray for you, can we say a prayer right here, right now? You'd be surprised how many people say yes, even if you're not wearing a collar. People say yes when you say, can I pray for you and with you right here, right now? So that might be the call. But I also want to take note of the Ethiopian here, because maybe our call is to be the person that prods, and or maybe we're the person that needs prodding. You see, Philip followed God's rule, right? God said, go and speak, go and find that carriage, run alongside it and connect, and he did. Philip absolutely did that. And talk to him about what he was reading. Do you understand what you're reading? Let's take this apart. Let's have a conversation here. And that was a wonderful thing. But the next step didn't happen until the Ethiopian said, hey, you Christ follower, I hear that baptism is a good thing. How about it? Can you imagine? Poor Philip. I don't know that he baptized anybody before that. He was caught unawares. He was charged to do what was needed in that space. The Ethiopian said, hey, why shouldn't I be one of you? Why can't I take that step? And thankfully, Philip said, okay. And they got out of that carriage, they got out of that chariot, and he went down and he baptized him. And then we hear that God just like whisked him away. He was gone. We don't know if that was a miraculous whisking away, or was that simply that the eunuch was so much in the moment and in the spirit and carried away with what was happening within him that he didn't notice that Philip left him. We don't know. We do know that something miraculous happened there for that man. And we do know that Philip grew in his ministry. Every day we have the opportunity to share, to share what being a Christ follower means to us. Every day, we have that opportunity in big ways or small. And sometimes it's simply by saying, "Can I say a prayer with you?" And sometimes it might be in a much larger way. It might be stepping in when somebody is defaming someone, when somebody is tearing someone else apart, maybe stepping in and saying, "You know, they're a child of God also. And if we don't agree with how they're doing things, then A, maybe we need to step back and say that people do things differently. B, if what they're doing is hurting someone else, then maybe we need to say, can we sit down and talk with you? Can we pray for you? Can we help you in this moment, in this situation?" I wonder how many racist jokes would stop if we had the courage to say, "No, this isn't funny, and I don't want to hear this." I wonder how many jokes about autistic people, or blondes, or people that are other than what we are would stop if we simply had the courage to say, "No, I don't want to listen to this, and I don't think we should be speaking this," because we all are children of God. I did a funeral yesterday for Patricia Crum. Lou and Patricia Crum came out of Union United Methodist and out of St. Paul's United Methodist, and the impression I get is that they have not been in church in a very long time. And yet there certainly was a following of God about them, and a big family, and a family that was extended because they took in their grandson, who became like a son to them. They took in a niece who became like a daughter to them. They took in the friends of their children that needed family. They just extended their love to all these people. And their grandson is somewhere on the spectrum. And when I invited people to come up and speak, he came up and he spoke about his grandmother and about the love that she gave him all through his life, the love and support, the courage that she gave him. It was so clear that he knew who he was because somebody spoke that to him throughout his life, that he was a child of God, and as such was a blessing and was blessed, that he was worthy of love, and that he could do anything, even stand in a room that may have exceeded the legal limits of how many people could be gathered there, and tell the people about his grandmother and the love that she shared. As Christ followers, our job is very simple and very hard. We need to speak the love that we feel. We need to share the good news that we are all children of God and are blessed and are a blessing. We need to witness to what this world could be if we all lived into that. And the way to witness to that is by living into that. There was a woman in the church that I came out of on Staten Island, Diana Brown, and she blew me away. She was like, 800 or something when I was there in my 20s. She was very old, and she celebrated God in all her ways, in all her life. And I remember one day driving down the street and I saw her struggling along Castleton Avenue. She had several bags, and it was obvious that it was a hot day and it was a heavy load, and she was 800 years old. This was hard work. And she's heading the same direction as me. I said, pulled over and said, Diana, would you like a ride? And she climbed in the car, and I cannot tell you how the entire trip she just talked about what a blessing, what a blessed day, how God saw her need and just sent someone along to help her. And wasn't God amazing? And wasn't life amazing? And for me, it was just a matter of saying, yeah, you see somebody, you give them a ride, no big deal. And I don't, from her point of view, it's like somebody offered me a ride. That's nice. Now I can rest my feet for 5 blocks. It never dawned on me to look at that and celebrate and give thanks to God. But she did in everything she did and said. She changed my day that day. She changed my outlook in that moment. I felt perhaps a little like Philip did when the eunuch said, "What is to stop me from being baptized?" Like, wow, I didn't realize that God had such a high role for me right here, right now, that God was going to use me. I just thought I was stopping and talking, but God can use me to help change someone else's life. We pray that God uses all of us every moment, every day, everywhere we are. And that when we're very lucky, that God will open our eyes and let us see just a little bit of how we're being used, that we might wonder at God's movement in this world. And so, to join in God's movement, I'm going to bring back up the PowerPoint because I have a dance video